Ever had one of those moments? You're sitting in your apartment, sunlight pouring in, your to-do list finally checked off, bills paid on time, but in that stillness, instead of feeling at peace, there's just this huge, empty space inside. Like your mind is a perfectly organized room, but nobody's actually home. It wasn't exactly deep sadness, more like a quiet hum of feeling disconnected. That nagging sense that you're doing everything society cheers for, hitting all the right marks, but your real life, the one you're actually living, feels like it's playing on a slightly off-key, muted track. I know that hum. For years, it was the background noise to my days. And if you're listening to this, maybe a part of you knows it too. On paper, my life looked pretty darn good. A job that got approving nods at family dinners, even though some afternoons I'd just stare at my computer screen, hit with this wave of, what am I even doing here? My apartment was that sleek, minimalist vibe you see all over Instagram. So clean, so tidy. It sometimes felt more like a showroom than a home. A place where my quiet worries just echoed off the bare walls. My phone would buzz on my birthday with quick, happy BD texts, and I'd reply like a good sport, wondering if those fleeting pings were what real connection was supposed to feel like. Everything seemed awesome, right? At least from the outside. But every night, it was just me and the ceiling, stuck in the same silent loop, the same question over and over, nagging in the dark. Okay, what am I missing? Why does having it all feel so empty? And it's not like I was just coasting, waiting for some big revelation. My mornings were a carefully choreographed routine of self-improvement, green smoothies that tasted like discipline, podcasts preaching how to level up if I just pushed harder. Gym sessions felt less like self-care, more like another task in the endless chase for better. Even meditation turned into a to-do. Be present, be mindful so you can get more done. I was doing all the things, all the right things.
But every little win felt temporary, like a sugar high that fades fast, leaving nothing behind. Every moment of rest came with this quiet guilt, a voice whispering, "You should be doing more." It was this exhausting cycle. Achieve something, feel okay for a second, then the emptiness would creep back, demanding more. More effort, more control. I started feeling less like myself and more like a project I was managing. Sometimes my own reflection felt like a stranger I was trying to impress and failing. Honestly, the idea of another 10 easy steps to a happier life, or someone chirping, "Just stay positive," made me want to scream. What I really wanted, deep down, wasn't another life hack. It was space. Real, quiet, no pressure space. A moment to just exist, without a checklist. A truth that didn't treat my exhaustion like a glitch to be fixed. Then, one day, not through some epic soul-searching journey, but in the most ordinary way, I stumbled across something. I was in an old, dusty bookstore, the kind where you can lose yourself for hours, running my fingers along the spines of books by authors long forgotten. I picked up a small book, looking like some old handwritten notes, no title on the cover, nearly passing it by. Inside, tucked away in a passage about the simple nature of things, I found a single line. It wasn't some ancient warrior's battle cry or a fancy philosophical argument. It was quiet, simple, but it hit me with a truth I'd never let myself consider. It wasn't about striving to be something more, but about the courage to just be. It pointed to a kind of peace, not from fixing every flaw, but from seeing a wholeness that was already there, ignored. A soft voice from those pages seemed to whisper a different way. And what that line opened up, what I'm about to share with you, it didn't magically solve everything. There was no sudden, dazzling moment of clarity. But for the first time in what felt like forever, a different kind of quiet started to settle in me. Not the hollow kind, but a restful one. The first time I felt permission, deep inside, to just stop fighting myself. To breathe like it was the first time, without the weight of needing to be enough. So, if you're feeling that kind of tired, not just in your body, but in your spirit, your very core, if that relentless voice saying, "You're not good enough," is too loud in your life, sit with me for a few minutes. Let me share that simple line from that little book. The one that for me started to quiet the endless hustle and helped me finally just be.
So, there I was in that dusty old bookstore with this unassuming little book in my hands. It felt like a collection of someone's quiet thoughts, maybe handwritten notes bound together, forgotten on a shelf. And like I said, one particular passage, really just a couple of lines, jumped out at me. It wasn't a grand pronouncement or a complex theory. It was simpler, much quieter than that. The words were something like this: "The universe doesn't ask you to be flawless, nor to endlessly chase some better version of yourself. It simply invites you to be fully present with the truth of who you are in this moment. Your wholeness isn't a destination you earn. It's the quiet ground you're already standing on, if only you'd give yourself permission to notice." Now, I read that, and then I read it again. And honestly, my first thought wasn't some instant aha. It was more like a gentle question mark forming in my mind. The quiet ground I'm already standing on? Wholeness isn't earned? That flew in the face of everything I'd ever known. My entire life had been about earning it, earning approval, earning success, earning rest, earning the right to feel okay about myself. The idea that my worth, my enoughness, wasn't tied to my next achievement, my next ticked-off goal. It felt foreign, almost too simple. For so long, I had operated on this deep-seated belief that I was somehow fundamentally lacking, that I needed to be fixed, optimized, upgraded, that hustle harder, be better voice was my constant companion. It had me convinced that peace was something I had to conquer, to achieve, after I had finally become good enough. And this passage was suggesting the complete opposite. It wasn't saying don't try or don't grow. That's not what I heard in it. It felt more like an invitation to stop the relentless self-improvement as a battle, to lay down the weapons I'd been using against myself, the constant comparison, the harsh self-critique, the endless moving of goalposts. What if, I started to wonder, all that energy I was pouring into becoming better was actually just reinforcing the painful belief that I wasn't okay as I was? What if my exhaustion wasn't just from the doing, but from the constant draining resistance to my own humanity, my own imperfections? The passage spoke of being fully present with the truth of who you are. And the truth was, I was often tired, sometimes uncertain, occasionally messy, just like everyone else. But I'd been treating those very human things like personal failures. This wasn't about suddenly believing I was perfect, far from it. It was more like a slow dawning. The realization that maybe, just maybe, the relentless pursuit of an idealized, flawless future me was the very thing keeping me from finding peace in the actual me right now. What if wholeness wasn't about adding more achievements or chipping away at every perceived flaw, but about accepting the entire, often contradictory, landscape of who I already was? The good, the messy, the striving, the tired, all of it.
It was a radical thought that perhaps the most profound act of self-improvement was actually self-acceptance, not a passive resignation, but an active, compassionate embrace of my own present reality. The idea that I could just be, and that being in itself was enough. Not enough to stop learning or growing, but enough to stop the self-inflicted suffering of constantly feeling like I was falling short. This one quiet idea from those old, handwritten-looking notes started to unravel so much of the pressure I'd been living under. It didn't make my problems disappear, but it changed my relationship to them and to myself. The constant noise in my head, the one always telling me I needed to do more, be more, it didn't vanish overnight. But for the first time, I heard another voice, quieter, gentler, rising through it. A voice that suggested maybe the most important work wasn't about fixing myself, but about finally coming home to myself just as I was. And if you're listening to this, perhaps caught in your own cycle of striving and feeling like you're never quite measuring up, what if that relentless pursuit isn't the only way? What if the ground beneath your feet right now is more solid than you think? What if the peace you're searching for isn't out there to be achieved, but in here, waiting to be acknowledged? It's a lot to take in, I know. It was for me. But it was the first question, the first whisper that started to change everything.
There's this almost imperceptible shift that starts to happen when you truly begin to internalize that idea that your wholeness isn't something out there to achieve, but something already within you. It's not like a switch flips and suddenly everything's perfect. No. At first, it actually felt a little disorienting. For so long, my entire operating system was based on identifying flaws and fixing them, on striving, pushing, becoming. So to just be, to entertain the idea that I was, in essence, already okay? There were no fireworks, no sudden influx of external validation. The world didn't change overnight. It was quieter than that. Just me, sitting with this newfound permission. The initial stillness felt strange, almost uncomfortable, because the usual noise of self-critique and striving had dialed down. But slowly, that discomfort started to morph into something else, something that felt a lot like genuine peace. Because the truth, the one that I'd found in those unassuming pages, started to sink deeper. You don't have to spend your life trying to assemble yourself into some acceptable version. You are not a project to be endlessly improved upon. You are a human being, already complete in your own unique, perfectly imperfect way. That worth, that wholeness, isn't conditional. It's just there, like your breath. And this understanding started to change not just how I thought, but how I lived in small, everyday ways. Remember those things I started doing? Making coffee and just watching the world for 10 minutes, no phone, dancing in my kitchen after finishing a project just because? Before, those might have felt like guilty pleasures or things I'd do after I'd earned them. Now, the motivation shifted. I wasn't doing them to escape the pressure or to recharge so I could hustle harder. I was doing them because they felt like authentic expressions of me in that moment. The writing I started doing again, it wasn't to build a platform or get likes. It was because the words themselves wanted to come out, because the act of creating felt like breathing. The way I moved my body, not to sculpt it into some ideal, but to feel the simple joy of being alive in it, strong or tired, or whatever it was that day. It wasn't about not caring about doing things well, but about detaching my fundamental sense of self-worth from the external reception or the perfect execution of those things. So if you're wanting to explore this a little in your own life, it doesn't start with a grand gesture. Maybe just try this. Notice one thing you do today, however small, and do it with a sense of gentle acceptance for yourself in that moment. Maybe it's allowing yourself to take a real lunch break away from your desk without feeling like you should be working. Maybe it's saying no to an extra commitment that would stretch you too thin, not out of laziness, but out of respect for your own capacity. Or catching yourself in a moment of self-criticism and instead of piling on, just offering yourself a silent, "It's okay, you're human." Or simply allowing yourself to feel whatever you're feeling, joy, sadness, frustration, boredom, without immediately trying to fix it or judge it.
And when that old, familiar voice in your head chimes in, you know the one that says, "But if I'm not constantly improving, won't I fall behind? If I accept myself as I am, won't I just stagnate?" Try gently, firmly answering it. Maybe the point isn't to endlessly improve a self that was never broken. Maybe the point is to simply live from this place of enoughness right now. Maybe growth happens more naturally when I'm not fighting myself every step of the way. This isn't about suddenly becoming complacent or abandoning your dreams. Not at all. It's about changing the energy behind your actions, from a place of fear and inadequacy to a place of self-trust and intrinsic motivation. It's about understanding that you can strive, you can learn, you can grow, all while holding the deep knowing that your fundamental worth isn't on the line. That's the shift. That's the different way of walking.
I know this path isn't the one we're usually sold. It's hard to quiet that internal drill sergeant. It's hard to trust your own inherent worth in a world that's constantly telling you to be more, do more, have more. To show up authentically, imperfections and all, can feel incredibly vulnerable. But that vulnerability, that willingness to be seen as you are, that's not weakness. That's courage. That's you choosing to be real and alive, even when it's easier to numb out or perform. And that choice, that quiet alignment with your own truth, that's where your real power lies. So if I could leave you with a hope, a soft wish, it would be this. May you find moments today to see your own inherent completeness, just as you are. May you meet your imperfections not with judgment, but with the kindness you'd offer a dear friend. May you find the courage to act from what feels true to you, rather than what you think you should do. And may you rest deeply in the quiet knowing that you don't have to constantly prove yourself. You are already enough, right now, in this breath. I am here, I am whole, and that is enough.
If this different way of seeing things resonated with you, if it offered a little space to breathe, that's all that matters. Maybe it's an invitation to live your life not based on an endless chase, but from a place of deeper self-trust and acceptance. And if this gave you something valuable, perhaps you'll find a way to gently share that sense of permission with someone else who might need it. Not because you have to, but just because.
Remember, you are not a problem to be solved. You are not a project to be perfected. You are not defined by what you achieve or what you lack. You are the presence you bring to your life. You are the courage it takes to be authentic. You are the quiet strength you find when you finally stop fighting yourself and simply allow yourself to be. And that, right there, is everything.